YouTube, what's up? It is Mike DeStefano from Canadian Card Collecting, also known as the Hockey Card Guru, a nickname that I was given by the man right next to me, Bird Bouchard from Red Cape Sports. How you doing, pal? How's daddy life treating you?
Oh man, daddy life is it's going well. I mean, lack thereof sleep, but it's definitely a rewarding lack of sleep. And I also do want to mention, Mike, 1 year anniversary basically right about now of when I originally dubbed you as the hockey card guru. And we're going to be getting into the reason why I called you that in this episode.
Yeah, well, technically, the playoffs didn't start this year until August, right? But it was like a week into the
Sure.
playoffs. But I get what you're saying here.
The 1 year hockey anniversary, we'll call it.
Exactly. And the reason why you bring that up, because what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to get you set for the playoffs. We're about 2 weeks away, and now is the time to buy those cards for that playoff flip game, right?
Mhm.
Card prices explode in the playoffs every year, whether it's a one game guy goes off, has a 4 goal game, Dennis Gurianov, as you know, an overtime, big time overtime winner, a prolonged playoff run. Like, it's a chance for investors to really make some quick money here. So we'll talk about our mindset heading into playoff season. And then we had some card suggestions for you. We have a couple cards under $10, under $25, and under $50. And then we both also have a bonus card on top of
Right.
that. So we'll have 7 picks each that we believe are somewhat undervalued right now, but have a chance to build value through the playoffs. So first and foremost, Bird, what is your philosophy for investing in hockey cards as we head into the playoffs?
Oh man, there's always going to be like a lot of rules to follow. I mean, naturally, first and foremost, you're going to want a team that goes relatively far, right? Because a team that goes relatively far, um, because that's just the reality of it. A lot of people are going to be filtering through the stats, right? And if you can put yourself in that top pedestal of top 5 points getters throughout the playoffs, much like Braden Point did last year, they made it far. He kept racking up the points, and that certainly showed off great things for him. And then I also look for, is there room to grow? Because you know, as much as I love Connor McDavid, and I do still think that there's room for him to grow, I just don't think that there's as much room to grow as some of these other guys that I assume both me and you will be talking about. So,
At least not here for this playoff run, which is where we're kind of
correct.
specifically.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with the playoffs, and one of my belief system and philosophies when it comes to the playoffs is, um, bad buy, good sell. It's a bad time to buy and a great time to sell. So
Yep.
guys like McDavid, who you think about more as long-term holds, it's a bad time to buy them. A, because you're
Hmm.
going into the playoffs, and why it's a bad time to buy them is because cards explode. Cards are way more expensive in the playoffs. He goes and
Yep.
has a 3 point game or a 4 point game on like night one. That card is to the moon, to
Yep.
the moon. And that is not the time to get FOMO and buy. We saw this happen last year. There was a lot of guys. Remember Dominic Kubalik for the Chicago Blackhawks first
Yes,
game?
sir.
You capitalized on this one. You
Oh,
were buying his
big time.
cards early in the year for, what'd you say, like $4 or $5? Got up to
If that,
seven. Yeah, got up to 75, $80
yeah,
by the time that the playoffs rolled around. He had one good game, and
one
you
good game.
capitalized. And that's one of my philosophies is make sure you're capitalizing on the big game. There are some players you need to identify as a long-term hold type deal. Like last year, I'm thinking guys like Miro Heiskanen,
Hmm.
Anton Kudobin, Shea Theodore. You mentioned Braden Point. Those were kind of long-term holds who they didn't necessarily have that like one big game, but there was sustained success throughout the entire playoffs. I'm not saying these are guys who should go out and like purchase right now, but if you're in a sell mode for those heading into playoff season and you've got yourself a decent stock that you've been stockpiling over the course of a little bit, or some of the guys who we're about to talk about, make sure that you take advantage of those games where they go off. You have someone have a 4 goal game, sell. Don't
Yep.
sit there and say, oh, he's going to do it again. It's probably not going to happen. Didn't happen for Kubalik. 2 weeks after he was fetching 75, $80, he's back down the $30 range. You got to capitalize on those gains. And that's kind of my biggest philosophy when it comes to the playoffs.
Couldn't agree more, Mike. I mean, we've seen it in Columbus with the goaltending frenzy. What was that? 60, 70 save performance. And
Korpisalo.
Exactly. And that was a card where you were finding it in the $5 bin or $2 bin.
$2 bin at the beginning of the season. You could get that card anywhere for. That got up to $80 within 48 hours of that game. And that's what I'm talking about. You got to capitalize on those ones and on those big time games. But then you also got to make sure that you are getting some players who you believe are just going to go on long-term playoff runs. And that kind of goes to what you were talking about. Identify those teams that you think are going to go deep. So who are some teams that maybe you're identifying as that can go deep, that maybe will be good, a good place to start to see if you can take a look at some players on those clubs. So who are you identifying as teams to go deep?
It's funny that you mentioned that. For the sake of this particular video, and I'm sure, I might mention it, a player, but I don't actually have any players on this team for the sake of this video. But I said at the start of the year that I think the Colorado Avalanche are going to hoist the Stanley Cup, and I still feel that way. Seeing the way that they have performed, I'm not about to flip flop there. And they have a lot of guys who can put the puck in the net. So a honorable mention for me would have to be none other than Mikko Rantanen. That dude is insane, and I still believe his card price is undervalued. But for the sake of this video, that's not going to be one of my official picks.
Right. And I think one of the teams that I'm identifying, I think Colorado is one. I think Tampa Bay is another team who could go on a long run. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a pretty solid chance. And keep in mind this year, the way that the playoffs are set, it's a little different than other years. You're guaranteed to have at least one team make it through your division. So essentially, if you're trying to figure out what teams you believe are going to make a long run, take a look at the division. Who are the top teams in that division? Because you're guaranteed to have one of them make it to the Final Four and go on a long run. So if you want to, something that I'm trying to do is just that. I'm looking and seeing who I believe are going to come out of the division, and I'm identifying players from those teams. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about some guys who are under $10 that you have identified as a good bargain that you think has room to grow. So go ahead, give me your 2-pack of players.
All right. So first and foremost, just because I'm in love with COMC and American prices, I'm gonna give you all American prices. So you can boo me later, but these are American prices under $10. Exactly. Under $10, they're not going to be far off anyway. But let's jump into it. Let's
be honest here. Both of our shows, Canadian Card Collecting and Red Cape Sports, is international. We've got viewers from the States. We got viewers from Canada too. So I mean, we're not going to boo you. I know I just did joking, but there's a lot of American viewers who want this content. And so you're going to give them some American prices, which obviously isn't too far off from Canadian prices. I mean, realistically, the names still count, and the value that you're giving these name values still count for those Canadians, and vice versa with myself. I'm going with the Canadian prices, and the Americans who are listening will understand, okay, these are actually going to be cheaper for me, but not, by too much. But these are still really good names to go out and target despite Canadian or American pricing.
All right. So number one, we both mentioned these guys as capable of going far in the playoffs, Tampa Bay Lightning. I got Andre Pyatt. I think he's a legit not a legit goal scorer, but I think come playoffs, he can start to put up some points. And if they go far enough, I'm not saying that he's going to put up the Braden Point effects that we seen last year. But like you mentioned, right, I think it's really important to almost buy the card and not the player, or I guess you can view that the other way. But just hear me out. It takes one good game, and for under $10, he's on the right team. Maybe not the best market, but he's on the right team that I think could potentially go back to back. So under $10, you can find them. The highest I found was right around 13. So, you can definitely do some best offers, buy it now, some are even $9.50. So that's my first card. And my second guy, we've mentioned him before. He's made our viewers money. Kevin Fiala. I had to go with Kevin Fiala because, like you mentioned, if there's one guy who's capable of, putting up a 3-4 point night, it's going to be Kevin Fiala. And they're playing some decent hockey. I like it. You can actually pick them up still. It's just ridiculous, under $10 all day. So, I mean, if somebody's willing to give you two for $10, you might want to think about it.
Yeah, and people who've been following your channel and my channel since, last year, are very well informed of what I think of Kevin Fiala and when it comes to him being a goal scorer, and he's heating up too. Like he's had a great second half to the season. Started off a little bit slower than I think we would like, but he's heating up at the right time. So Kevin Fiala, definitely a good buy still. My 2-pack of players I got for you. My first one. This is the one where you're going to be like, man, I told you, because a year ago you said, should I buy this? And I was like, I don't know. It's Sam Bennett. Sammy Bennett from
I
the...
can't believe you're doing this to me.
I know.
Just to fill in everyone, I told Mike, I said, should I be buying Sam Bennett? And he goes, why would you just light your money on fire, is what he told me. And now he's coming on. He's coming on and he's saying, buy Sam Bennett, but let's hear him out.
Listen. It is a different situation now than it was a year ago.
Certainly.
He was not in a good spot in Calgary. He wasn't going to make his way up the lineup. He wasn't given opportunity. He was playing fourth line minutes. Despite that, he was actually decently productive in the playoffs, which is why you were wondering, should we get him? Should we buy him? And I wasn't so sold, but he did have 8 points in 10 playoff games last year. And he plays a very playoff-esque type game. Mm-hmm. The reason why he's a buy now for me is because he got traded at the deadline to the Florida Panthers, and he's been one of the hottest players in the NHL ever since. He's getting an opportunity in the top 6. He is 8th in the NHL in points per game since the trade deadline. He's got 13 points in the 9 games he's played since, playing on a line with Jonathan Huberdeau. I think that Sam Bennett has an opportunity to rack up some points here and really give you some long-term benefits. He could be one of those guys who has like a big game, scores a hat trick or scores 2 goals, and you could hit this guy up for $5-6. And I think he's somebody who definitely on a team like Florida, who they may not make a longer run. He's one of those guys I'm targeting as maybe a quick flip if he has one big game in him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, speed kills. I mean, I'm pretty sure last year he actually scored 2 shorthanded goals in the playoffs. Yep. Or maybe it was Dubé, but regardless, I mean, not bad, right? These are true value picks. Low risk, high reward.
And my other one, Chandler Stevenson. Not a name a lot of people know. Certainly not a household name.
No.
But he anchors a line. He's the center between Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone. Yep. He's got 11 points in his last 12 games, 33 points this year in 47 games, playing almost 20 minutes a night for the Vegas Golden Knights, who I believe has an opportunity to make a long run. Whether you think it's going to be Vegas or Colorado, I'm pretty 50-50 on that. Same. So I would invest a little bit in both on players on both teams. But for Chandler Stevenson, all that I just mentioned to you, his card is still $2. He is a top line player who gets 20 minutes a night beside Pacioretty and Mark Stone, who have done nothing but score goals this year.
And in the playoffs, they have a history of scoring goals in the playoffs.
Exactly.
I gotta admit, I mean, the first round, I give you the nod on that pick. Not to say that Pyatt and Fiala and Bennett aren't great picks, but that's probably the card that you all want to go acquiring for sure.
Well, it's one of those cards where if you are kind of a beginner or you don't have a large bankroll and you're just wondering, I got a few bucks to spend, go and take a peek at Chandler Stevenson. There's a whole bunch on
Mhm.
ComC. I went and picked up, half a dozen or so
There you
the
go.
other day, all for $2. And I'm just hoping that he has a long sustained playoff run. I don't think I target him as a guy who's going to go out and score a hat trick, but this is one of those sustained guys who, you're into round 3 in the playoffs. Let's say they get over the hump, they come out, and all of a sudden you take a look and you're like, oh, this guy's got 12 points in
Yep.
13 games. Like, oh wow. And then all of a sudden, he scores a big goal in a conference final game or a semifinal. And now Chandler Stevenson, you picked him up for $2, and lo and behold, you can flip him for like 20, 25.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what I'm hoping when it comes to a guy like Stevenson. All right, let's get to under $25. Who are your two guys that you've selected here?
Well, I'm gonna have to double, triple, quadruple up. I've mentioned this guy so many times, but he's still undervalued. And I said all along, you pick him up, and come playoffs, when he does his magic, you're not going to regret it. And that is going to be Nikolaj Ehlers. I love this kid. He's fantastic, carrying the puck into the zone. He's some Jets fans would argue he's one of the better guys at doing that in the league. But regardless, I got a funny feeling that the Jets are well prepared for playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to make, the final four, semis or anything like that, but this is a team that puts the puck in the back of the net, and under $25, Nikolai Ehlers, you can get them all day. You can even find them under $20. And that's the guy who I want to be picking up, because there's still, in my opinion, a lot of value there. He's playing in a Canadian team. We'll see what kind of matchup ends up happening. I know that, it's not officially set up, but I think that if there's a team that could come out and beat Toronto, it might be the Jets. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll come out on record and say this is the year Toronto gets out of the first round of playoffs. It might be even get past that. I really do think that. But regardless, I'm rambling too much. Nikolai Ehlers, that's my first one. And the second one, this is a name you.
Before you get to the second one, I do have just a quick comment on Nikolai Ehlers.
Yeah.
Because this is somebody who I don't think are in the back of a lot of people's minds right now, because he's been injured for the last couple of weeks. He's expected to be back for the playoffs. And if he's kind of out of sight, out of mind right now, this is why we're putting this episode out today. It's so that, you can get ahead of the game and go and get those players before the playoffs start. So when a guy like Nick Ehlers, who hasn't played for a little bit, but was playing exceptionally before
Exceptionally well.
like point per game player, having a breakout season, you pick that card up now while he's undervalued and under talked about, you're going to be laughing when he goes out and puts up a 3 spot against the Edmonton Oilers in round 1 when he gets back. And then all of a sudden that card doubles and you've doubled your money, and you have Bird Bouchard to thank for that.
Yeah. And the next guy that you guys can thank, I'm not quite sure if we've actually mentioned this on YouTube, on podcast, whatever, but I know for a fact that me and you have texted about this guy, Tyler Toffoli. Tyler Toffoli is a guy that almost nobody wants to think about, but here's my reasoning for this. They don't even have to win a playoff series. They really don't. People love their hockey in Montreal. Tyler Toffoli, the top point getter. I mean, $20 American right now is what you can pick that raw ungraded young gun for. And we've seen him have some success, and he's capable of. I'm not saying he's going to score a hat trick. I'm not saying he's even going to score 2 goals, but he might. And if he does, right, he probably won't, but he might. If he does,
probably will.
Yeah.
He's one of the best goal scorers in the league all season long, and
that's what I'm saying. So for $20, he's playing in a pretty big market, I would argue. I mean, we're always talking about how big Toronto is, but they love their hockey in Montreal as well. And he might score 2 goals. He might, and maybe that's some foreshadowing or not. But I think there's a lot of value there. I really do.
Yeah, and it looks like they're probably going to end up playing the Maple Leafs, and there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that,
Yeah,
that series, right? Toronto Montreal hasn't happened in decades,
yeah,
and if he goes out and he's scoring at will against Toronto in the playoffs, I mean, we saw his card at the beginning of the year when he was just decimating goaltenders, shoot right up,
yeah.
right up. Like this card went from being before the season started you can get his young gun for about $10 to $15, and then it just exploded to like a
Hmm.
$50 card raw. It's come back down to earth a little bit. But like I said, once the playoffs hit,
Yeah,
if he starts going, has a couple big games, that card could go right back up to where it was earlier this year.
exactly.
I'm just, when it comes to Montreal, I feel like I personally, I am staying away from them because I
Sure.
think they're just going to get decimated by Toronto pretty darn quick.
Like I said, it very likely could be. And again, I just want to put it out there. We agreed in this video. There's three categories. Got to put two guys in each category. So for the sake of that, $20,
And this
I
is
am willing to take a risk on that.
and this is like you're taking the boom philosophy where you're hoping to bank
Yeah,
on one game, right? Where
yeah,
and it's funny, I can already sense that like that is somewhat of a difference between yours and my list.
sure.
I'm banking on long playoff runs where you're like, I want guys who can go out there and score a hat trick. I'm looking for that boom one game
Yep.
type of player, which is interesting. So how we both have somewhat different philosophies.
And
I mean, we
last year I had your philosophy. That
yeah.
was my philosophy, and it did very well. However, this year, because I'm on ComC, because within the click of a button, boom, you can flip and things like that, and people don't have to wait for shipping, and I don't have to worry about people returning cards. That's my mentality this season.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Here's my two pack for under $25. Philip Grubauer of the Colorado Avalanche, goaltender. You can get this card for about $25 right now. And like I said, we both are very high on Colorado going on a deep playoff
Yep.
run. And Philip Grubauer has been outstanding this season. Like he's arguably a Vezina candidate. In my opinion, he's 27, 9-1 with a 920 save percentage and a 203 goals against average. Last year in the playoffs, he was 5-1 with a sub 2 goals against and a 922, similar the year before. He comes up clutch for Colorado. He's one of the most underrated players in the league. And I think if he backstops this team all the way to a Stanley Cup final or a deep playoff run in general, that $25 all of a sudden doubles to like $50. Like if he has a game like a Corpusalo or Thatcher Demko, where he has like a 47-50
Hmm.
save performance,
It's over.
that's growing, man. That is
Yep.
growing. And again, he's one of those guys too who I think is going to be a longevity type of play. The other guy I have, Zach Hyman of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I've been saying he's been undervalued for so long. I was picking his
Yeah.
cards up for $5 all summer. And he's had a fantastic season 15 goals, 33 points in 43 games, sitting shotgun with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner in Toronto, the hockey mecca. And when you have so many eyeballs on him, there's so many people investing in Toronto because there's just so many collectors.
Yep.
Investing in Maple Leafs is going to be smart, especially if you believe that they're going to make a run, which you and I both do. And
Yep.
the guy's just a gamer, man. He shines on the big stage, and I think he's going to be a massive, massive hit once the playoffs come. Assuming that he does come back with Matthews and Marner, there's somewhat of a risk here because he is injured right now. The assumption is he'll be back,
Yeah.
but if he comes back, does he end up on the third line, second line, or does he go back with Matthews and Marner? We still don't technically know
Right.
exactly what's going to happen, but either way, $10-15 for Zach Hyman, I still think is incredibly underpriced. And going into the playoff run, I like him as a prospect to have a boom material as a one gamer, but
Yep.
also longevity. So Zach Hyman, $10 to $15, pick it up.
Listen, for everyone watching, listening, however you're consuming this, Mike and I we don't tell each other our picks. Like literally, this is raw. When it comes out, that's when we know. And I was thinking, I really want to put Zach Hyman on this. Wait, How about the guy who does a podcast about the Toronto Maple Leafs? And I put full faith in you that you would mention him. Fantastic pick.
There we
Can't go
go.
wrong.
There we
Can't go
go.
wrong.
Hey, if you guys are Maple Leafs fans, selfless
There you
promo
go.
here. Go check
Plug
out
it.
my
Plug it
podcast,
up.
Locked On Leafs. It is a daily Maple Leaf show. I will be getting so hot and heavy when it comes to the Maple Leafs once the playoffs starts. But every single day I post a new podcast. You can check it out wherever you get your podcast from. That is Locked On Leafs. And I talk about hockey cards on there as well. And Zach Hyman is someone who I have discussed in the past about being a player who I believe is undervalued as a Maple Leaf. And I still have that feeling. I still believe that. He is incredibly undervalued. So pick him up for a playoff run. You won't be sorry. Under $50. Who do you got?
Well, I'm going to go in reverse order of what I wrote just because I already mentioned this guy, Braden Point. Here's my thinking with this. We know that Tampa won it all last year, and we saw what Braden Point, like where his card prices got to. And I want to say they got up to $75, right? Right around there.
75, 80. Yep.
Right. Well, now you can find this card under $50. So it got there. Can it get there again? I'm going to roll the dice and say, yes, it can and will get there again. This is a guy who is capable of going on a tear in the playoffs, just like he did, however many months ago. So for that reason, Braden Point, I would be picking him up. So that's my first guy. My second guy, again, to go along with the theme of who's a guy whose card prices can go up if he has a big day or a big night, whatever you want to call it. Kyle Connor. This is a guy I've continued to speak about, continued. Listen, Kyle Connor is just a goal scorer. It's what he's done. It's what he's going to continue to do.
And what pays in this hobby?
Goals.
Goals.
Goals. And it's ridiculous. That's why I haven't mentioned a defenseman. And I'm not saying that you can't have a Miro Heiskanen type of player on here. And I believe even Hughes did quite well last playoffs. But for this reason, I'm going to pick Kyle Connor. This is a guy who scores goals. And if there is going to be a team within that division, as much as I like the Oilers, I think their defense and they have some defensive issues. So, I am going to take Toronto to kind of come out on top of that Canadian North Division. But if there is a team that can do it, I think it's going to be the Jets, and Kyle Connor puts the puck in the back of the net. And that's all that people care about. It's all that people care about. Give me one good day, Kyle Connor. You can buy his card for right around $30 American. Give me one good day, and I flip you and I sell you.
Yep, that's a real good one. That is a really good one. This is again, we got some telepathy going on here because I also had Braden Point as one of my buys.
Solid.
And look, we've been talking about this guy for a very long time. And the reason why I knew his number got up to 75 so darn quickly is because we've always talked about it. And I was doing some more research and whatnot. And I was shocked to see that his card has dipped down below $50. You can pick it up now, $35, $40 Canadian. And it's in my opinion, an absolute bargain. He's heating up over the course of the last month. He's over a point per game. And imagine what the type of numbers he'll put up once Kucherov and Stamkos get back into the lineup and he gets his friends back who are passing him the puck, guys who he can pass the puck to. Oh, wait, Bird, we don't have to imagine what it looks like next to Kucherov. Let's just look at last year's playoffs.
Exactly.
He had 14 goals, 19 assists, 33 points in 23 games, and almost won himself a Conn Smythe Award.
And he was clutch too. Don't forget that, because that's huge in this hobby.
Huge clutch goals, hugely clutch. And he's playing hurt too. He wasn't completely healthy. I think he missed a game or two in the cup final. Yep. Braden Point is one of the most underrated players in this game. He's still having a good year. He's under point per game, but once you add those teammates around him, who can finish, who can help distribute the puck to him, he's going to put the puck in the back of the net a lot more. And that $40 investment, I guarantee you, will double just like it did a year ago. Probably more, because
there's so much room to grow.
Keep in mind, last year's playoffs, the hockey card market didn't hit its boom at that point. It didn't hit its boom until Series 1 got released this year. And it was really like until the season started, like, to be quite honest with you. Like, it wasn't until January when hockey cards really took off, right, around the market. So if it was $80 last year with a much smaller market size, he's going to have I was going to say break records, but he's probably going to break records. But he's going to have a phenomenal playoff run. And the other guy that I have under $50, and he's a guy who's right at $50, it's Mark Stone, who, again, we've gone back and forth about this. I don't know if we've discussed it much on the pod or in videos, but Mark Stone
once or twice.
We may have as like an under 50 buy, and he at the time I think he was like $40. He's gone up to like literally
he's about 50, right?
50, even a little bit higher than 50. I've seen you can get it for 50. You got to do a little bit of searching, but he's about a $50 to $60 card. So it's slight cheating, but you can get it for 50 and try haggle. But this is a guy who over the last 2 years in Vegas has 29 points in 27 playoff games. And the way that he's playing this year, I think he's bound to score more than that in the play. He's got 59 points in 51 games this year, 9 goals in his last 12 games. He's on a roll. So I have 2 guys from that team, 2 guys from the same line, Mark Stone and Chandler Stevenson, as my as 2 of my players to target, which should probably tell you something about what I think of the Vegas Golden Knights.
And I believe Mark Stone's wearing the C as well, right?
Oh, yes, guy.
Yeah, so really I mean, obviously it doesn't play a huge impact on everything, but if he can lift that cup, the big old C, it might play a big role. And I was really close to putting him on my list here. But I just thought personally I put Kyle Connor instead. But anyway,
it's good. Then we had a different one because we had the same.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't doubled up on picks, but will we on our honorable mention?
I would imagine so. So give me a few of your honorable mentions here.
I honestly just got one honorable mention other than Mikko Rantanen, because he's phenomenal and he's on the team that I personally believe will win the Stanley Cup. Andrei Svechnikov. I was looking on ComC. This was a guy who, not like before the season, I want to say, we were both mind boggled at how it was under 100, right? And we know that come playoffs, a big performance can boost things. I'm looking at ComC. I'm about to hit the buy it now button. You can find his young gun for $60 American. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I was actually shocked. I'm not a guy who wakes up every day and looks at the standings, but Carolina, 10 losses on the season.
Number 1 team in the league.
Number 1 team in the league. Like, I knew that they were good. I didn't know that they were number 1. And Svechnikov's not even, I think he's like 4th on the team in points, right? But again, this is a guy who's capable of putting the puck in the back of the net. This is a guy who, whether you flip him throughout the playoffs or whether you want to hold him long term, listen, I have bought one of this guy's cards for $75. That was during the middle of the season, basically. And now we're heading into playoffs. They're the best team in hockey, and it's $60 American. I'm pulling the trigger on that, because why not?
I remember kicking myself. Like, we could do a segment one day where it's like the biggest wussy moves where we didn't pull the trigger. Last year when the pandemic first hit, I want to say this was around legitimately may have been like a year to the date where this happened to me. But Svechnikov at the time was going for about $25-30 raw, and I had an opportunity to buy a BGS 9.5 for $60 shipped. And I waited a day or two before I actually like got back to him, but I said, okay, I'll do it. And he's like, sorry, sold, man. And I'm so upset because by the playoffs, after he went off in a couple of games, that same card that I, didn't buy for 60 was up to
Yeah,
$250.
easily.
And the raw, you buy it raw at the time, when the hockey card boom happened, it got as high as I think $120. So it really, really skyrocketed at one point. It's come back down to earth and sits around the $80 range, Canadian, that is. And yeah, I still think that's a buy because I think that he is the goal scoring prowess to be $100+ card all day long, like we've been saying for a year. And one of my honorable mentions is his teammate, Sebastian Aho. Very, like, legitimately everything we just said about him, we can say about Aho. He's $40 right now. $40. Like, I was going to put him in my under 50, but I have him as an honorable mention just because I'm not as sold that the Hurricanes are going to beat Tampa, which means they're not going to have as long as a playoff run. But when it comes to a boom pick for someone who can have a massive game, Sebastian Aho can do that. And over the last 13 games since the trade deadline, he is the second highest scorer in the league, 19 points over the last 13 games, second to Connor McDavid, that is. But like last year, he had 12 points in 8 playoff games. I think he can take his game to another level this year. And so Sebastian Aho for me at $40, definitely another buy. Anthony Mantha with Washington, since the trade, he's looked pretty good. You can get his card for about $15.
That is if he can see. I mean, he just got a stick to the eyeballs.
Let's not go there, Mr.
No, we're not going to go there.
We're not going to go there. A couple other names for you. Here's a biggie, okay? So for maybe some investors with deep pockets looking for some deeper names to go for, I think Nathan MacKinnon right now is going for about $400 raw. I believe that is a solid buy. And especially, if he does end up winning the cup, that card's like going to almost double. You'll at least get up to 600 if that happens. And like we saw last year, that got up to 600. And if he performs the same way he did, 25 points in 15 games last year, would have probably won the Stanley Cup if Grubauer would have stayed healthy and they didn't have to play Michael Hutchinson in the playoffs. McKinnon's card would have just kept growing and growing and growing. It's a little bit of a high risk, right? Because that's $400. That's quite a bit of money, but that's a high reward for a guy who I think is a top 3, top 5 player in the game. If he ends up lifting Lord Stanley by the end of the summer, that Nathan MacKinnon raw rookie, I guarantee you, is well above that $400 price range that he's going for now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, although I never agreed with people actually saying this, like, I don't know how people were able to get it to come out of their voice box. There were some people who were saying MacKinnon was the best in the NHL, right? So what the talent level is at. Like I said, I don't agree with that because I know a guy by the name of Connor McDavid. However,
to be fair, MacKinnon was doing just ridiculous things, and McDavid wasn't in the playoffs anymore. He was out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
MacKinnon was the best player in the game, still currently playing
at the time, right? But I was just saying, like, before this season began, I did see some power rankings. MacKinnon 1, McDavid 2. That rubbed me off the wrong way. But again, an opinion is an opinion. So. Yeah. But yeah, man, those are my picks. I feel like if you guys made it this far, you're gonna have to do me a favor and hashtag, what did you call it? Boom pick? Hashtag boom pick. Right? And then of course, like the video and subscribe and go check out Mike's channel. Like, why not? What are you posting? You posting a video weekly, bi-weekly?
Yeah, I'm trying to get weekly videos out there. It's been, I'm sure I can't complain to you. You just you were a child, but it's been a little busy. But with the playoffs about to get ready, planning on having some weekly hockey card investing videos up there. So this is kind of our precursor to get everyone ready, and then once the playoffs get here, I'll be having some, chatting about the market, players who went off, guys who be good sells. Like I said, it's not always a good buy. Sometimes though, you do get an opportunity if you get in early enough. Like last year, I would say Dennis Gurionov. We got
Hmm.
in early enough, and that was in the playoffs, and then he ended up going off a couple hours later.
That's why we called him the hockey card guru. So if you guys have made it this far, that's the story.
Yeah.
Mike, like we posted the video, and then 3, 4 hours later, I think he had a hat trick and an assist. Uh, Yeah, there you go. So Mike, the hockey card guru. So thank you all so much for watching this episode. And honestly, we might make you some money. So you can thank us later. I love Timmy's, and Timmy's does gift cards. So just keep it in mind.
All right, man, Bird. That was a lot of fun, and for those who are following on my channel, definitely go check out Bird. Not just a hockey guy; he does it all: football, basketball. He does it with his brother Mitch. Big into Pokemon. So if you're, on that Pokemon craze right now, definitely check out their Pokemon investing videos as well over at Red Cape Sports.